everybody. It's Michelle LaVore and
Devin LaVore coming at you with a less lengthy video.
Potentially.
Potentially less lengthy because we're not going to be going day by day this time.
It will be a little bit different. We're just going to kind of hit some of the highlights from over the week because truly the Lord just was giving us so much. And
this will be the third week, right?
Yes, week number 3.
The third week, they do a different colored candle anyway.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a different colored video.
Yes.
We're going to light some different lights.
Yes. And but yeah, so we're excited to just share with you guys what the Lord has been speaking with us as we've been going through just this Advent calendar time. Basically, we're going to use this video to kind of finish it off because if you are doing the Advent calendar, it literally ends today, Christmas Eve.
Or was that yesterday?
No, it would be today.
Oh, so
because tonight most places.
So you still open up a little calendar, a little box, a little something on
the. Because it goes.
I thought the Advent was to the Christmas time.
Yeah, which is tomorrow.
Right, and so that's still part of Advent.
Yes.
Oh, okay. So it's like the tree topper of Advent.
Yes.
Oh, the birth of Jesus.
Yes,
of course.
Because Advent, of course, means the coming or arrival. So it's celebrating until you come to the arrival of Jesus.
Well, let's just celebrate then.
Yes. But before we begin, as always, we want to give a huge thank you to everyone who has given and supports us. And just huge thank you to everybody. And we are support-based, so if you would like to give, you can. We have a PayPal link, Cash App, and Venmo all below, and you can click any of those and give there.
Yeah.
So, like we're saying, God's been taking us through this kind of Advent calendar. It's so funny because literally it was on just Sunday, so that was December 22nd, that God really put all of these pieces together because, we're thinking like Advent calendar, okay, you just every day there's something that the Lord has for you, but we weren't really looking at it in the sense of like the Advent wreath and how there's this wreath that has 4 candles and then a 5th one usually in the center. What is so amazing is because with this Advent wreath, right, it's got this wreath that then the candles are put in. And it just really, I felt like it was like this puzzle piece that the Lord just put together because Devin got a vision for December of this year, last December, but the vision he got was
I think we were asking about the whole year, right?
Yeah, but all we really got last year was December. And it was a wreath that then had silver ribbon throughout the whole thing and then some silver bells around it. And
silver bells. Isn't that Bing Crosby or something?
I think so.
Silver bells.
But anyway, so there's this wreath around this whole month, and it was just like, okay, God, what are you doing? What are you doing? And then it really just was, again, confirmation of like, yes, this is for this month. And then basically on Sunday though, he was highlighting that there's the Advent wreath has all these candles, and each week there's just a different theme for the candles. And the very first one that you put in and it's for each Sunday prior to Christmas. And so on this first Sunday's candle is actually called the prophecy candle. And so we literally, so that would have been December 1st.
Yeah.
And literally that night, Devin had gotten this, it was during worship, and he just had this word that was, it was like, all right, this is what I feel like the Lord is saying. And it was, it was a prophecy, basically. It was like a prophetic word saying like, hey, like it's time for us to come into the new, going from the old into the new. And
well, the Lord said, he's like, LaVore's, and he actually called us LaVore's. He's like, LaVore's, this is a new day. Right now, right here. It's not a prophetic word of what's coming. It's happening right now. Starts today. And we're like, oh, okay, cool. Usually when you say that, it's prophetic, though. Usually we don't really see much. We hear a lot more stuff, but and it's actually kind of the way it's been.
But
we didn't say that in a bad attitude or anything.
No.
It's just like, okay, well, we take it, we receive it. It's great.
But it was just like looking back, we were like, what? Like,
yeah, I know.
It was the prophecy candle, and he literally got a prophecy on that day. Yeah. And so then the second week you have, and of course hope is the theme of that first candle, and I think that's really throughout that week God was speaking like hope, because he's speaking resurrection and life and all of that. And then on the second week, it's basically this candle of peace, which I thought was crazy again, because on December 8th, the beginning of that week, God was really sharing with us about the bench of delight that's in one of our visions. The purpose of that is to have like a Sabbath rest. It's a time to just rest in the Lord because of everything that he's done. And so I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And so then for December 15th, which will be the week we're going to go into here in a little bit, it would have been the shepherd's candle, and the theme is joy. And you will see just kind of how like the shepherd, we're the sheep and Jesus is the shepherd, and it's like we know his voice and we hear and we follow him. And really, like, there's just been this theme of the Lord saying like, I will answer and I'm coming, but also a separating, which is interesting because the shepherd is going to separate out, the sheep that belong to him and the sheep that don't, or like the goats, there's like the two different, or the picture of just separating. And then this Sunday on the 22nd, it would have been the fourth candle, and it's about love. And there has been a theme really right away on Sunday, which is about come King. And it's just like, come King, come, and just that heart cry for the Lord to come. And so it's just been so amazing to see all of that. And of course the final candle that's lit is the Christ candle. It's like, here's Jesus. He is here. The light of the world
Here
is
comes
here.
Jesus.
Yep. And you've been getting that.
It's been going on in my head all day.
All day.
Here comes Jesus. Travis Green. You guys know Travis Green?
Yeah.
That's my impersonation of him. Here comes Jesus.
Yeah. And so it was just really awesome to see how God was like a candle. He's lighting certain things up in our hearts and in our life throughout this entire month, week by week. And on the wreath that you had the vision of, there were these silver ribbons that were throughout the whole wreath. And again, it was just these really kind of these themes that God was weaving throughout the week. And so the first week he was just saying like, do not fear. And we had all these different scriptures throughout the week. That was a big one, wasn't it?
Yeah. We were like, man, why are you talking to us about this so much? Yeah. It's like, because I want you to not fear.
Yeah. It's like, do not be afraid. I'm going to go before you. I'm with you. And just that sense of do not fear. And then the second week was really James 1:12, where he's like, once you're going to go through these trials and things, but it's like, have faith and overcome, and you'll receive the victor's crown of life. And so it was just this faith for a crown. It was just this theme throughout the whole week. And then this last week, like I said, it was about God saying like, I will answer, and just this idea of separation. And we'll get more into that. And then for this week, which we're only, basically the last few days of this week, it's basically come King, come. And that has really just been what God is like, this is the heart of this time. And so it's just been amazing to see how God has brought all of these together. And really this whole month so far, it's like, wow, we really have walked through this kind of Advent wreath time with the Lord.
I tell you what, and you really have to do this stuff by faith. Because for me personally, that's all I'm doing. You live with me, you can testify. That's all I'm doing. And a lot of times you see connections to stuff that I don't even see. It's like, oh, don't you understand this? And so I'm getting this really strong word about things, and then I come to find out, oh, that was the lighting of the prophecy candle right there.
Yeah.
Like, what? That's amazing. What's a prophecy candle? But also, can I reference the Come King?
Yeah.
Come. It's a prophetic number that I kept seeing, 935, and H 935. Does that mean king?
No, it means come.
Come. Okay.
And then G is king.
Oh, it is? Okay, you're right, because it's like come or bring or enter into. That's right. Because he brought
Adam the animals, or he brought Eve.
He brought Eve, and it used that word 935. So it's like, it's a sense of like, come King, like Jesus, come. The end of the Bible in Revelation 22, 17 through 21, it's crying out for the Lord to come, and it ends there. Song of Solomon 8:14, she's waiting for her bridegroom to come, and she's just ready, and it just ends there. And so I kind of feel like that kind of touches on our journey as well. But am I getting ahead?
No, you can go.
Where we're kind of there. We're at that place where we're like, when we're at the end, Lord, there's literally nothing. And it's like, we're just at the, Jesus, we need you to just show up. Because we got nothing else,
Yeah.
That's the end of our story. But the Lord's been speaking about the end this week in particular.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to make sure that the come, Jesus, come thing was referenced, and where it was coming from in the book.
Yeah.
It's coming at the end.
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah, and that really has been like yesterday and today. And it's just like, come, King, come. Even a little bit on Saturday night. It was.
And so even at the end of this whole Advent thing, that's what it's about. Come, Jesus, come. And then so we celebrate when the Lord came. He arrived,
Yeah. And so we're going to go just back from basically December 15th through the 21st, and
But we're not going to do it every day.
We're not going to do every day.
We're not going to do that.
But just kind of...
We've probably given you already half the information you're going to get anyway.
Yeah. But this is like what God was really highlighting and sharing with us. So some of the themes for this week have been the separation and the I will answer. And really the start of our week, it was about kind of, I feel like there was the Father being a friend, and God's basically encouraging to say, hey, ask of me, and I will answer. And so we basically kind of camped out on that for a few days of just like seeing where, it started off with basically like the Father in heaven is delighted with the Son, and it kind of comes from like Mark 1:11,
which was kind of a repeat. It was like the Lord was kind of reiterating, like, it's like, hey, let's start here. It's like, remember, you got to start here at this Mark 1:11, buddy. This is where you start. I am pleased with you. And so let's just start there. And so it's almost like, because I think he gave that to me on the 12th, right? But then on the 15th, it's like, we're going to start our week with this. Remember, I told you need to start here. We're going to start here.
Yeah. But then also the idea is like, when the Lord has a son that he's delighted in, that son can bring joy to his heart, and delight to his heart. And the son is the one who will inherit. And so it was just like, you're my son, I love you, you bring joy and delight to my heart, and so ask me, and I will answer. And so it's like from a place of being a son and from a place of being a friend. And like the highlight of being a friend was really big, and it kind of took us to John 15, where Jesus is like, I don't call you servants anymore, I call you friends. And a friend knows, you know, what the master is planning or doing. It's like, you know, a servant doesn't. And so it was really kind of this time for us during this week where God's like, I want to reveal things to you, so ask of me. And ultimately that's what it was. We were asking the Lord for more wisdom, more clarity in what he has for us. And so many different areas.
So many areas we had questions about. We're like, Lord, but okay, if you want us to ask, then I don't understand this, and this, and how does this connect? And like, what is that about? Like, what is that? We never get answers for that. And he's like, okay, well, let me tell you. Like, what?
Yeah. And
that's the proof of the friendship right there, is when the Lord he just tells you.
Yeah. And it's been really cool for me personally, like throughout this week. There was the asking, and I know you were definitely in deep prayer with the Lord, and God started revealing some things as far as just the big picture of where God is in more detail of like where we're headed and where we're going.
Like our life.
Yeah.
And our vision and our purpose and, well, technically his purpose.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, what is it? Like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Not what are we doing right now, but like, what is the... You know, kind of like the MCU, they always come out with, you know, their phases, and so they're planning way ahead. They got movies slotted for 2031 at this point, and it's like, that's kind of what we're thinking, but we're thinking more of like family tree. You know, where are you planting us? What's going on? Stuff like that.
Yeah. And so then, like, the Lord is answering. And then for me, of course, it was just kind of the time frame. And
I was going to say, this has to do with time.
It does.
Since you said, of course, I was like, oh, it was a time thing.
So I was just seeking the Lord as far as just the timing of things. And it's funny because I didn't necessarily it's not like I have, like, dates or week by week type of thing, or even a month by month, but he really was sharing with me just kind of the heart of more of like seasons, like, okay, this is where you're headed, what you're going into. And for me, it brought a lot more clarity and understanding to just the direction that God is sending us for our family. And it was like, wow, this is so amazing. Honestly, even today, during our God time, I had been getting some like prophetic art things last night, and then, but I was kind of in a stumped place where it was just like, Lord, what is, I don't understand. How does this piece fit in? And kind of like if you're working on a puzzle for a long time, and it's just like, man, I'm not, where did these pieces go? I don't know. And it was like, okay, take a step back from it. And then when Devin was sharing this morning, all of a sudden it was like I could see how all the pieces lined up and like fit. And it was like, oh, this is amazing. And just to have the Lord kind of share those things, it really has been call to me and I will answer you. And I will show you deep and hidden things, and I will reveal to you my heart and the purposes behind what I'm doing and how I'm moving. And so that has just been huge. And it's kind of like even with Abraham, you know, he was a friend of God, and when God came, he's like, should I tell Abraham? And so then, but he's like, yeah, I'm going to answer by telling him my plans. And then it's so amazing because Abraham then is like speaking to the Lord, like, hey, well, what if there's 50 righteous? What if there's, you know, and he goes all the way down, I think it's to 10. And and the Lord is like, I will listen, like I will yield and hear what you have to say. And so it was just really awesome to go through that story like throughout this week as well, and just see how God's like, when you're a friend of the Lord, he does reveal. Yeah. He reveals more of his heart, and it really is a friendship, a friendship where there's a back and forth, and there's well, let me hear what you have to say. Just like Moses, when God's like, okay, step aside, Moses, I'm about to destroy all these people. And then Moses is like, wait, before your name, like, don't destroy these people, and the Lord God listened with Moses and changed and said, okay, I'm not going to destroy them, but I think
it made the Lord so happy. He's just like, ooh, look at him, he's reflecting. It's that 7:22. It's like he's reflecting the heart of the Father back to the Father, reflecting the heart of God back to God. He's like, that's the fruit. That's the fruit I want to see right there. He was serious, because I know later on in Ezekiel, I think it says he looked for someone to stand in the gap. He looked for someone to stand in the gap like Moses did. He's like, but I found none, so I poured out my wrath. And so that wrath was real. He was really going to do that. It's not like God made a mistake and he was just having a bad day. He's like, nope, I'm going to do this. But he was showing that, like, mercy triumphs over judgment, Yeah. And so in this relationship with the Lord that we have, particularly this week, he's just been showing, like, you have no idea how much I love you. You have no idea how close I am to you, and how much I'm doting on your everything that you're doing and what's going on, And yes, you've been in a time of blindness and darkness and obscurity and all of that. It's like, but that's totally by my design, in the same way that Joseph's life and, David's life, so opposite of everything that they dreamed and were promised. That was the design. That was actually the part that was getting you prepared for what was coming. And so as we enter into this time of God saying, ask me, and he answers and all that, it's kind of another marker of like, wow, we must be at the end of something, because this kind of stuff doesn't happen until you get to the end. And we're in the 12th month, and there's this wreath, and it's like all these things are pointing to the end. But what's significant about that is that the Lord's like, well, this is where our relationship is going. It's going toward more intimacy, deeper intimacy. And I felt like the Lord said to me back in 2017, we're dreaming up, we're trying to exercise our faith to believe for the Lord just to give us a house, or at least put us in a position to get one. You should know by our video count and the length of the video and the consistency of our discipline and just what our passion and commitment for the Lord is, right? So we're not afraid to work. I mean, we've never been that, ever. We're not afraid to work. It's just this is the work we're doing. And the Lord had to deal with me on that one in all of 2018, basically, when I was getting attacked for not being we're not going to work. And I was like, the Lord's like, I'm putting you to work. Let people say what they want to say. Well, you live by what I say, okay? And so we're just believing the Lord, though, that he's like, I want to give this to you. I want to give you this. And people will say, what, you expect God to just give you a house? Well, that's what he said. He literally asked us, what kind of house do you want? I mean, however the Lord does it is up to him. You don't tell someone how to give you a gift. You know what I'm saying? It's just, he just does whatever he does, and that's the way he does it. But it's like we were just exercising our faith just for that. And the Lord said, this house that I'm going to give you is going to be a prophetic sign of the level of relationship I want to walk with you in. And I feel like with this, we're stepping into that. He's introducing us to it. He's kind of giving us just a little bit of just like, let me show you. It's like either God's going to answer you or he isn't. For those of you who really know the Lord, you know that that's true. He's either going to speak or he's not. But it's like the Lord, because we've tried to get the Lord to answer questions a lot during a time where he's like, oh, I can't do that now because it'll interrupt what I'm actually doing. But now he's like, oh, I'm good now. You can ask. And it's like, oh, okay, well, thank you. And I remember when he said that to me, he's like, this house I'm going to give you, it's going to be a measure. I was like, well, it better be huge. I mean, can you have a house that's like the size of a community? Because that's how big I want. I mean, this thing needs to be. Don't give me no small little shack. Then I don't want a shack intimacy with God. I want like a whole city size relationship with the Lord. How about a planet's worth? No, I'm just kidding. There's really no measure, but it's like a prophetic sign of what's coming. And so there's been a lot of excitement around this particular week also, because there's been so many things that have been pointing to the end. Just this week I've been getting that prophetic sign like crazy. The end days, and end this, and this is the end. And so many prophetic things that just have been saying like the end. And even when Isaiah, when he reads the table of contents in his book, he just happened to read this one thing. He's like, oh, look at that. It says the end of an era. And I was like, what? For real? It was just so much of it. The Lord just using so many things like that to communicate that that's kind of where we're at. And I'm just like, Lord, we felt like we were at the end of a lot of things. Which end is this? Is this the end? Is that why we got the wreath and everything? Please. You lose your attitude real quick. You just go, God, please. We so tired. We so done.
Yeah. Well, and that kind of actually has been another part of our week. We were seeing the 115s, and it led us to 1 Samuel 115, which is where Hannah is crying out. And it's interesting because
I think I'm still there.
Like the Lord saying, I will answer. That's what he did for Hannah. She would keep going up year after year after year, but finally, a particular year, there came a moment when the Lord's like, I will answer. And he answered her. He answered her request.
You see the excitement? I'm getting excited right now.
Yeah. And then, of course, she became pregnant and gave birth to Samuel. And when we were looking at the 115, also Luke 115 has to do with the birth of John. And it was just amazing because we really felt like God was talking about like this birth of Samuel and John, which both, again, represented the end of something. Samuel was a prophet, but then he inaugurated the very first king. So that was the end of the judges' time. There were no more judges. There was now kings after that. John the Baptist really was showing like, hey, this is an end of an era because...
And the beginning of another one.
Yeah, because Jesus is about to come on the scene.
So they were both kind of like transitional figures in biblical history, like the end of an era type of transitional figures, not just one president becoming another, we're just changing presidents,
or one king after another king. It's like, no, we're going completely into something new and different. And
we're not going from the 4th grade to the 5th grade. We're going from school to real life. No, I was kidding.
Yeah. And so it's just, and it was just really interesting too, because it's like, who they were. You're talking about John the Baptist and Samuel. And so it was just like this sense of
like a mega dudes.
Double
Is that a
glory.
Word? Mega dude?
Yeah, this just great glory of the Lord that was given. Hannah was asking, but even with Elizabeth and Zachariah, it was something that they had prayed for because the angel says...
felt forsaken.
Well, and the angel, when Gabriel came, he's like, this is an answer to what you have requested of the Lord. And so with both of them, there was an answer to what they asked. And the Lord is saying, I will answer. And so then the second thing that God's really been touching on throughout the last week was this idea of separation. And I feel like there was really 3 different areas that God was hitting on.
That was a huge one.
Yeah.
Right? That was a big one. Man, we're only giving you little Costco samples of stuff. But I wish sometimes we could vlog and just show more of what's been going on, but it would be a lot of talking.
Yeah.
We do a lot of talking and conversing because that's pretty much what you do when you're in like isolation, or when you're just not doing much of anything else, you know? Mm-hmm. You're just hanging out. It's like when you go camping, what do? You do a lot of different things, but I don't know. We do a lot of talking.
But some of the areas that God was really hitting on as far as separation was, one, just the idea of the righteous and the unrighteous, and that there is a separation through even the judgment of God. Mm-hmm. And like, for example, with Noah and the ark, the rains came, and so that separated Noah, who was righteous, and his family from the rest. And of course, that was the death of the unrighteous in that example. But then also kind of this idea that out of the judgment of God, the righteous will arise. Mm-hmm. And I think we touched on that a little bit in our last video, but just that sense of, the Lord coming, the axe is at the root. And like, if the axe comes and takes down the tree, but then it's like, where you see that in Isaiah 5, 1 through, I think it's probably, is it Isaiah 11?
Oh, you mean Isaiah 11, Isaiah 1 through 5.
Yes, thank you.
Gotcha.
And it talks about, really Israel was like a stump, but then out of that was Jesus. He came. And, just that sense of God bringing forth his judgment, but also there's an elevation of the righteous in the mix of all of that. Mm-hmm. And so that was one of the things about the separating. But then the second one we ended up talking about was God just really speaking to, once again, the separation of the flesh and the spirit, and the importance of just like listening to the spirit. That was a good one. Yeah. You're talking about that morning. And just talking about, like, there's the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, but there's also the tree of life. And it's like we want to...
And you're going to be operating by one of those.
Yeah.
That's it. There isn't any other.
Yeah, and of course we have everyone is born with a sinful nature, with the flesh that is going to war against the spirit. And so when you're saved and born again, you have the spirit of life living within you. Mm-hmm. And
you've traded saps.
Yeah. And but now there is that continual battle within, and just saying, like, no, I'm going to say no to my flesh and yes to the spirit, and in the direction that God has us going. Yeah. But then the other one, which I feel like was probably the biggest separation, was between family and the work that the Lord has for us with like the house of the Lord. Mm-hmm. And he gave last week he was talking about how we're like dough, and it's like the idea of, it's like, okay, you're all mixed up, and all this stuff, you're rolled, you've been kneaded, you're ready to go in the pan, but
got all the lumps out, all the air pockets out. Ooh, you may not want to be in the room when the air pockets come out. I'm just saying. Yeah. So, but just like, if you just picture, like, you've got this big thing of dough, and so it's like, for us and everything that God's done, it's like we're this big lump of dough. Yeah. And this week, it really felt like God was taking, the little dough cutter, and he's like cutting and separating, and really showing us, like, okay, this over here, this is for the house of the Lord. This is what I'm doing as far as the work that I have for your life. Mm-hmm.
this dough over here, this represents your family tree, and like what I'm going to be doing with you, your family. And I want you to see that there's a difference between the two. And so I just loved the picture because it was so. And I think that's a part of like the I will answer you, because that's what God was releasing plans for. He's like, this is what I have for your family, and this is what I have over here for the house of the Lord and the ministry aspect of our life.
Right. And it can be very confusing because we've been so inundated with the house of the Lord vision that the Lord's been giving us because it has to do with art and raising up prophetic artists and being a house of the Lord for a house of prophecy and a house of prophetic art and a house of prayer. Obviously, you got to have the prayer and the worship and the art, different kinds of art and all that stuff. But it's like, that's literally what our family is.
Yeah.
We are literally that, you know? And so it's been, the time came, you know, where the Lord, this week, where the Lord's like, okay, I'm going to separate these. It's like, you are my house. You are the house of the Lord. But then there's a house of the Lord ministry that I want you guys to do that's separate from what I'm doing with you guys. And it just brought such clarity and answer to questions. And it's like, oh, that's what, okay, two totally different things. And it's just like, God has a time even for revelation to be revealed, and that's why sometimes it can be confusing where you're believing the Lord for something and you think something, and then he seems to be doing something different. And you say, but Lord, I thought, you know, but I thought the Messiah was coming from Egypt. Oh, no, he's going to be a Nazarene. Oh, but I thought, and then you find out as the story plays out, he literally came from all three places. And so the separation of time reveals the big picture. And so that's kind of like what the Lord did for us, is he was separating. And it really brought a peace and a clarity, because we were like, man, we feel like we're just going to be ministry all the time. You know, or just like, where's a place for us? You know, and it's like, okay, we got a place for us, but it's like, it's all a part of the house of the Lord and all that. And God's like, no, here, let me show you something. And we were like, oh, that's amazing. Oh, we love that. You know, and it's like, because God's like, I want you to be priests in the house of the Lord. You are priests in the house of the Lord, whether you see that or not. That's the truth. That is what you are. You are priests in the house of the Lord, but there was a distinct separation between family time and ministry time. And I'm like, man, God, thank you so much that you said that, because we've been so in, you know, we got dough and, you know, flour all over our face. We've been so much in the baking of everything, particularly with the house of the Lord vision, that it was hard for us to see the difference between our life and ministry life. And I'm like, man, I bet, you know, as I've studied things and I've seen things over the past 30 years with the Lord, I'm like, oh man, I get it. I get how people get lost in ministry. I get how the go of things can happen. I totally get that. It's like, you've got to keep making the Lord your number one spice, your number one go-to thing. You can't get fulfillment from ministry or just take over ministry with the soul and just this is just what we do. We're just doing our thing, and it's not really with the Lord. It's for the Lord. There's a difference, and just so much that came out.
Yeah.
And it was a blessing.
Very
it was
much
such a blessing of just like,
huge.
Wow, Lord, thank you that is actually your will. So we'll be doing your will, not ours. You know? Yeah,
and it also really brought a lot more clarity, even with, you know, the house of the Lord vision that we have, in like where to focus, you know, because you can get so many, you know, it's like, well, what about this? And we could do this, and we could do that, and we could do this, and then, you know, and you could have like 20 different things on your plate, and the Lord's like, no, I just want you to focus over here. I'm giving you this area, this area, this area, this area, you know.
But Lord, what about, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Who's in charge? You know?
Yeah, and so it's just like, this is where I have you focus, you know, and I personally really love that, because it, you know, it's like, well, this is all this other stuff. Yeah, you've got 4 over here, but yeah, the whole plate of 20, yeah, that can be a part of your life. But this over here, I only want 4, you know, it's like, you know, or whatever it is. It's just,
yeah,
you know, just like there is a certain focus and heart that God wants this loaf to have, and there's going to be a certain heart in life that the other loaf is going to have, and to see the difference between the two.
Yeah.
And so it was just really awesome, and I love the fact that the Lord was using the bread analogy again, and just like, hey, I'm separating the dough, and then he's going to be preparing the dough. You know, because that's the other thing too. You can make a giant batch. Not that I've ever baked bread in my life, but I've watched videos.
So you'll get the point.
But it's like, you can have a batch of dough and then divide it up, and then, you know, bring out like whatever maybe additional things you want to put into it. You know, it's like, oh, well, with this dough, we want to add some nuts and raisins to it, but with this dough, we're just going to leave it plain. You know, and so it's like, you can get different loaves out of the same dough, like the base dough mixture.
Yeah.
So
that's true.
Yeah, and so that's really overall
that's pretty much it.
What the Lord was speaking to us throughout this last week, some of those major things. And then, like I said,
it's a Christmas video.
Yes,
you know?
And coming into this week.
If you got nothing else to do today, you can just watch this.
Yes.
You know, be encouraged if you want, you know. It's a present, our gift to you, our next video.
But yeah, so then just kind of covering for basically the last 2 days, today's the 3rd day, has just the theme has been just come King come, and we did talk about that earlier, and just being kind of at the end and wrapping things up. And it's so interesting, because I feel like the Lord a lot of times, especially in this season of our life, is like he reveals things at the end. You know, it's like, oh, this is, by the way, this is really what you've been going through. And it's like, oh, you know, we get bits and pieces along the way, but then it was just like, hey, here's the reveal. Oh, wow, Lord, you're so amazing. And
but there's still more days in the
There's
Wreath.
still more days, and which I think is really cool, because tomorrow is Christmas, and so it's Christmas Day, but also Hanukkah begins Christmas Eve, or you know, Christmas Day in the evening.
Yeah, so when you guys are watching this, it's already Christmas.
Yeah.
It's already Chanukah.
Hanukkah. And so I'm excited to see what the Lord is going to do with us there, because last year it was definitely a highlighted time and season for us. And like this year, Tabernacles, we did a whole walk in the park with the Lord during that entire week. So I'm curious to see what the Lord has for us coming into the Hanukkah season, which begins tomorrow. And but the last thing I wanted to just share that I think is really very cool is that
every day of Hanukkah will be a massive influx of financial miraculous provision, and then we will go to our house. Yeah? Sound good?
Sounds amazing.
All right, sweet. Sounds good.
Amen. But I think
from heaven. Go ahead, baby.
But I think what's been awesome too is the fact that the Advent, Wreath, and Hanukkah both have to do with light, and it's lighting of candles, and
let there be light.
Exactly.
See?
And when you have the light, you can see.
See?
And so I think that there's just this sense of God revealing. He's like, I want you to see. I want you to be able to know my plans, know what I'm doing. That's what
know the woe.
Yeah.
See the glory.
Exactly.
Let there be light, which is like, here, LaVores, your new life begins. Let there be light. The old judgment has passed. The old has gone away. We're done with that. LaVores, come forth and into the new life, into new light.
Yes.
Get off them grave clothes, you know?
Exactly.
That's what I'm wanting to see. I'm just being straight up honest with you.
Yeah.
That's what I want to see. You know, all this stuff just keeps pointing to it. And we always have these moments where it keeps pointing to it. And I'm just like, well, I'm going to keep being faithful to just listen to the Lord and just expect the Lord. You know, Isaiah chapter 30 talks about you're blessed when you expect and look and you're like longing for the Lord. And that's just where I'm at. So I'm already blessed even in my suffering.
Hey, well, it's like the Song of Solomon 8:14 with unconcealed eagerness. She's
That's
saying,
what
like,
it is.
make haste.
That's what, thank you for giving me. It's like you hear a song and it sings everything you can't really put into words. And you're like, I thank you for that song. So thank you for that word.
All right.
2 times.
Yes. But yeah, so that is pretty much what we have to share with you guys. We do pray that you have a blessed day and that
we are a rocket and we are ready to be launched. Blast us off. We can be space cadets.
So yeah, so I just pray that you guys are blessed and yeah, and that you have a great, fantastic day if you're seeing this on Christmas. Even if you're not, I pray that there is just blessing upon you and that there is just joy from the Lord that is being experienced and felt in your hearts and your lives. And yeah, we just pray blessing over all of you. And yeah, until next time, guys, we love you and we'll see you later.
Bye.
Bye.